If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Did you grow up with the NES, PlayStation, Star Wars, cartoons, and 80s TV? Do you like to think who would win in a fight between Batman and the Master Chief? Comics, games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of geeks. Games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of This Week in Geek. This Week in Geek.
Well, hello. Welcome to another review episode. We had planned to have a regular show this week, and then Mother Nature wanted to play with us. That's right. Well, for one, we had some plans, and friendo of the show, Justin Eacock of Terrible Warriors, decided to turn 40. I guess, well, not really his decision, but he turned 40 and wanted to come out for a visit because we hadn't seen him in person in a few years, actually. And, you know, time starts to fly, and he goes, yeah, I'm coming out. Well, he just so happens to come out when we end up having a freak end of the month storm. And I'll get a little bit into that, but I planned originally to go over with him. He was going to pick me up. We're going to swing by Birdman's place and hang out for a bit on the Saturday, and then Birdman and I would record on the Sunday like we usually do for the weekly show. And I said, all right, I'll prep my reviews. I've got some stuff ready to go just in case, you know, I don't have time to do it otherwise. And then we saw that there was going to be freezing rain, and I went, ooh, because of my history with freezing rain and some mobility issues when it comes to ankles and joints and that, I don't really leave the house if I know for sure there's going to be freezing rain. It wasn't, you know, I wasn't worried about anybody else's driving or anything. I was concerned with me safely getting from my apartment to a car to their apartment and back in a safe and timely manner. And I went, okay, well, so we split up a little bit, and we ended up having Justin over at my place during the day, so we could have sort of a small lunch here. We had some birthday cake, caught up on everything, and then made sure that we played a little bit of games and stuff together. Sent him on his way over so he could go for dinner and then hang out with Mike. And then the freezing rain started. I think they had a good time. We'll have to find out from Birdman later on how everything went. But freezing rain happened. Power flickered a bunch. I was like, all right, screw this. I'm going to bed. I wake up the next day, and it is a winter ice rink wonderland outside. I wasn't hit nearly as bad as other areas. We still had, like, power flickered a little bit. And then other parts of town were, you know, pretty much a sheet of ice, very thin sheet of ice. And then you find out that the rest of Ontario got hit really bad. Like, we're talking certain areas where I have family and friends having almost an inch of ice surrounding each tree branch. Like, it's encased in like somebody poured a bunch of glue on top of it. And we had one of those storms, I want to say about 5-6 years ago. And then this is the worst one I can think of in parts of Ontario since like the late 90s. There was one in Quebec, like, was it almost 20 years ago? So it's a pretty rough one. There are parts of the province that are not going to have power still for another day or two. And they're having to clear roads, and a bit of a nightmare. And then, you know, that caused issues with some people's internet coming in and out. And we went, you know what? we're not going to risk trying to record the main show that way. This way we can record something at home and make sure we can upload when we, have the bandwidth to do so. And I went, okay, well, maybe I'll do that on a Monday. Maybe I can do a solo show. And then we went, you know what? Maybe not. It is going to be April Fools. We don't celebrate April Fools. I've mentioned that before. We made sure that we put it on the socials, that we do like seeing when people have like good hoaxes or there's like good commercials and that, and we usually will collect them together and talk about them. If there happens to be any major ones that are that good, we will talk about them. Not on this show in particular, because we're prepping this a little ahead of time, but I went, you know what? Let's get this stuff ready to go. We're going to make sure that we've got all of our reviews. Birdman has a few that he's going to include here. I've got mine that are ready to go. And, we're just going to sort of wing it, put this out, because we're not sure, again, weather-wise, what it's going to entail for us. Later on this week, we've got the big Nintendo reveal for the Nintendo Switch 2, and I'll talk a little bit at the end here about, what that is going to entail programming-wise for us. But yeah, they always say that March can come, in like a lion, out like a lamb, or in like a lamb and out like a lion, and it's definitely going out like a lion. We are pretty much just melted completely here, and there's talk of freezing rain coming a little later on today as I record this. But I'm going to be visiting family, doing some cat sitting, so hopefully the weather, fingers crossed, stays okay when I travel, and continues to stay that way for the next few days. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. That's what's been going on this past weekend. So without further ado, I'm not sure whose review we're going to go with here, but without further ado, one of our reviews is going to come here, and I'll be back at the end just to explain what our programming is going to be like. It's going to be a little different over the next week or two. Alex, the producer here, and as I was talking about previously in the last week or so, our friends over at BeQuiet have sent over some new PC build products. If you're looking to build a new PC for 2025, they've wanted to see, here are some things to consider. And I wanted to sort of pair two things together because they're both dealing with CPU cooling, and they go about them in very different ways. First, we have the Silent Loop 3. Now, we've talked about the Pure Loop 2, and as well as other air coolers and liquid coolers and stuff over the years, and a few from BeQuiet as well over the time. But this is the first time that I've had a chance to check out a 420 millimeter, which is a massive gargantuan one. You have to have basically a full-size tower case or a custom case that is just very big. These are basically the biggest I've seen on the market when it comes to the 3-fan setup. Now, this is going to cool even your most hefty high-end desktop / workstation computer. Pretty much ain't nothing going to heat up like crazy with something this big on it. That being said, it's full of the RGB lighting you've come to enjoy. They are quiet fans, as it's BeQuiet obviously, but it is very well engineered. There's a 3-chamber pump design, which is made to reduce turbulences and noise. Dampened fans, adjustable pump. There's a 6-pole motor in it, so that the motor itself is very quiet. To be honest, that is not a huge concern of mine. I've always been more of a function over form kind of person. I don't care if something gets a little louder, but I know people are sensitive to that, and they basically make some of the best solutions here at BeQuiet for that. Now, it has 3 silent wings, which is the 140 millimeter power management fans that they've got hooked up here. It's super, super good at keeping these cool. I swapped out the cooler that I had on my main computer to test this out, and luckily I have a case from BeQuiet that has enough room for it. And in putting it in, I noticed there wasn't really a change in my current setup because I wasn't pushing it super far. But what there was, I noticed, was the fans didn't need to spin up quite as much. It had a little more surface area for the heat to dissipate. The pump was working quite well. I noticed the fans didn't have to kick in as much. So you can tell that, with a 420 millimeter versus what I had previously, which was more into the 360, which is sort of what you consider to be a sort of higher end, but this is even a little bit larger. Just that extra space means that the fans can spin a little less. If you're really concerned with noise and just airflow and that, having more surface area for the actual, ventilation and to dissipate it is a lot better in that terms. Comes with a 3-year manufacturer's warranty. It's got RGB lighting. Again, you can turn that off or on. You can have it hooked up or not if you don't want to. And it's elegant. It's not as brazen in your face as some other ones out there, but it still can look pretty and be integrated with most systems. Very well designed, heavy duty. You can tell it's going to work, and as with previous liquid coolers from them, you can refill the liquid itself, and it's not it's a closed loop, but it comes pre-filled, but you can, if you want to, refill it if you need to down the line. The other product we're talking about here is a new product from them, is the Pure Rock 3. They also have a Pure Rock 3 Pro, which is just a larger thin block on top, but what we're going to talk about here is the Pure Rock 3, and I'll just briefly talk about the Pro as well, just sort of give you a comparison of what you need. This is if you're going for an air heater, not liquid cooling. For the most part, I've mostly gone with liquid cooling the last several builds, but I have had a few computers that I built for family where, they didn't want anything elaborate, they weren't going to use anything elaborate, but, and for those, usually I used a stock cooler, but I found that the stock coolers just either sometimes don't come with one anymore, or they're inadequate, or they're noisier, and that is a big factor. Like generally the actual ones that come bundled with CPUs nowadays are pretty noisy because they're going for cheap. They just want it to work. Well, what you have here with the Pure Rock 3 is quite a good thermal heatsink design, and then you've got attached to it one of the Pure Wings 3 120 millimeter power management fans that is pretty much their top tier when it comes to quiet but really, really super efficient fans that beQuiet makes, that they put on a lot of different products. We've had them in a few things that they sent us before, so you're getting a really good quality fan hooked up to it, and just the engineering on everything here is just pretty good, pretty top tier. You've got 3-year warranty on it. The Pro, as I mentioned, if you're looking at it, the difference here is it's basically twice as thick because it's got 2 layers of fans, sort of sandwiched together in like an Oreo type thing. But again, it all depends on what your situation is and what you need. If you're looking for something that is, going to be high velocity fans that are really quiet but also keep it cool in most situations, you're building yourself like a mid-range computer or even an entry-level. You want to build an entry-level computer for somebody, or you've got maybe an entry-level computer from, I don't know, a Best Buy, a Walmart, or even an Amazon. You got an entry-level Acer or something, anybody's computer, and you're like, what's something I can upgrade on it that isn't going to break the bank, that is I can install in this day and age where everything is so expensive to make upgrades for, and you're looking and saying, hey, wait a minute, what can I upgrade here that is going to keep the computer cool? Because that stock coolers on a lot of entry-level, sub $800, even sometimes even more than that computers, and a lot of times where they cheap out is on the cooler. Well, you can get yourself one here. You don't have to worry about liquid cooling. You don't have to worry about making sure it all fits. Most cases are going to probably fit the Pure Rock 3 or the Pure Rock 3 Pro, and you'll instantly end up with something that is better at managing the heat dissipation from your CPU, give you a little longer life on it. If you're already, let's say you have something, you don't want to build a brand new computer, but you've already had a computer that had a stock fan, it's starting to heat up and you're going to have to replace the thermal paste or thermal pads on it and do sort of a cleanup of the computer. A great thing you can do now is pick up one of these air coolers and pop it on. You can always take it off and use it on a new build later on, but this is something you can get right now that will overall make the computer run more efficiently, quietly, and hopefully a lot cooler once you've made sure that you've replaced whatever stock cooler that you have, because it's already going to be an upgrade from pretty much anything that you can get pre-built from most companies, especially large corporations, or stock coolers on most Intel or AMD CPUs nowadays.
Hey guys, this is Mike the Birdman here. I've got a special review for us today coming from our friends over at Wizards of the Coast. I'm looking at the new edition of the Monster Manual for the 2024 edition rule set. I was given a copy of this for D&D Beyond, as well as a copy of the physical book with the alternate cover. It does look pretty kick-ass. So this is something I've actually been field testing over the last month and change or so in my private games, both at the friendly local game store that I run down at the Dragon here in Guelph, Ontario, Canada, but also on my personal online game to see, do I like the new monsters or not? One of the problems I've often had in doing any of my games with Dungeons and Dragons is, how do I balance encounters? How do I make them tough? How do I make them deadly, but also rewarding and fairly fun to fight? And I think the Monster Manual in the 2024 edition of the rules actually does stuff to make this happen. What I found is that these monsters hit a hell of a lot harder than some of the old versions. In fact, in one of the first games we played in the new private game that I'm running for a couple of my friends, I used one of the new monsters, and it is a CR11 humanoid. Basically, I think it's called the Bandit Crime Lord, or something along those lines, and it has a devastating pistol attack. I was able to take down one of my players in one hit. My players were like, holy crap. And my guys are level 8, so they should have been able to withstand that. But unfortunately for them, not today. And now they have a healthy respect for some of the things that I am indeed throwing at them. And so far, it's actually worked out really well. I'm actually really liking a lot of the new monsters. Another one of the things I was able to throw at them as well was this sort of like this fungus zombie thing. And again, my players did not expect this thing to engulf them and basically start doing all sorts of crazy damage, as this monster literally devours them bloody alive. And I'm really liking this thing. I mean, it's kind of nice to see what you can do with a lot of these new monsters, because a lot of their abilities have been reworked. I know there are differences between things like the Umber Hulk and things like the Banshee. I think the Banshee now has a different ranged attack, but still has stuff like its whale. Ghosts are a little bit different and stuff like that. If I did have a complaint about the book, though, other than that, you know, there's a lot of stats in here, which is wonderful, and there's a lot of really great art. There's not as much lore as I would like, because I literally own every single book on D&D Beyond, and you get a lot more in previous editions of the Monster Manual, plus some of the third-party publishers, like the guys who do the Dungeons of Drakkenheim and stuff like that, and like Humblewood. And while the artwork in this book is fantastic and awesome, I would like a little bit more fluff, so I can maybe base more campaigns around this, maybe get an idea for their environment. It does tell you what they give out for treasure and stuff like that, but I want a little bit more flavor for my monster soup, if you will. But I do like one thing that they do in this book, I think really well, is they give you more humanoids. So if your campaign is more urban-based or more faction-based, you do have more options other than just your standard, like, beholders and black puddings and oozes and, like, centaurs or whatever. You're getting a lot more variety when it comes to monsters. Like I said, really like that. There are some pretty heavy hitters that. There's, like, this blob of annihilation. Don't screw with that thing. Basically, this primordial ooze from beyond death and the spaces in between worlds sort of thing. Very Lovecraftian horror, but very cool. But ultimately, do I like the Monster Manual 2024 edition? Yes. I think the monsters hit a hell of a lot harder. Some of their abilities are remixed. And if you're using this on a D&D Beyond account, you can mix and match the monsters, which is often what I do. If I need a monster to hit a little bit less, maybe I'll go back to a legacy version. If I want a monster that has a slightly remixed ability, I'll use the new one. So I like it from a Game Master's perspective. I think it's really good to have as a tool in your tool belt for your Dungeons & Dragons game. And out of the 2024 edition rules, it's the book I like the most so far. Does it have some flaws? Yes, but if you want to add new threats to your D&D game, then I really can't think of a better place to start looking for your monster menagerie. than the Monster Manual for the 2024 edition of Dungeons & Dragons. Once again, a review copy was provided to us here at This Week in Geek, and look forward to more role-playing game content as I continue my exploration of all worlds of imagination.
Our friends at Sony have provided us with review codes for the newest MLB The Show 25 game. Now, this is several years now that we've been covering it, specifically myself. I think this is probably my 6th or 7th year with doing so, and I can say that this is an iterative increase in the release. Again, a little more polished, a little more extra things that they've added that are noticeable, if not, super notable, at least from my own personal standpoint. I think this is the 20th year of the franchise running now in a row, which is, kudos to them that it's been going that long. And I'll say this is still better than Madden or pretty much any of the EA or 2K sports games. It has monetization involved, but it's not nearly as bad. Also, there is sizable gameplay updates that they do pretty much every year here. We did get a chance to check it out both on Xbox and PlayStation, and I can say that it's pretty much an identical experience, at least if you're playing it on Series X versus PS5. Do not have a PS5 Pro to test on currently. That might be rectified in the future. I'll see about prices and everything on that. And I can say that playing it on the Series S, it does lower the quality. It's not substantial, but I honestly don't know who is buying sports titles to play at this point on the Series S specifically. Just know that the actual experience doesn't lower. It feels good still playing it on there. It just obviously doesn't look as good. That's at this point really what we're contending with. But what they've done here is gameplay wise, they have they've some buzzwords here. They've included like show tech, which is proving you're the GOAT with difficulty settings. They've done some stuff when it comes to adjusting dynamically the difficulty, which is always good to see. I, for one, played on easy. That's just how I am. I'm not here to give myself a crazy challenge in sports. I'm here to have a good time, and that's just how I generally play. And I think it's a good experience overall. Now, another feature they've had is with Road to the Show. You build the baseball player that you want. You basically start out with like university scouting. It's the whole career mode, and it's pretty dynamic, pretty full. About the same as what you've seen sort of in previous games. Little tweaks here and there. There is in the storylines. That's where usually you find the more interesting things, is where they take historical things and sort of put it into the game engine and work with it. And this is the Negro League Season 3. So yeah, it says you transport yourself into the past and you're introduced to basically unsung heroes of baseball, on true people that were trailblazers at a time when it was not integrated. And for that aspect, I think is one of the most compelling reasons to play these games, is putting in these historical modes where you're living through the life of somebody who was marginalized and seeing how, they came up through an era that, for a lot of us, it's not that long ago, but it's long enough that it feels like a completely different world. There is the franchise mode, which is always here, which is you manage, build, and lead your team through the World Series, all that fun stuff. And I can say, is this a significantly, better game than last year's? I would say it's an iterative increase. It's not as substantially as big a jump as it was the last few years ago when there was a bigger jump, but it is smooth. I didn't notice any crashes or hiccups or anything. It is not as obnoxious as most other sports games when it comes to microtransactions or loot boxes or any of that stuff. It's still a solid crafted game. Very fun to play with baseball. They're pretty much the only game in town when it comes to this high quality of a level of any, major baseball game in the world. You see companies coming up with little things here and there, but this is the big licensed title. It's still solidly built, and for the last several years now, been on multi-platform, and you still get a pretty good experience no matter which one you play it on.
Hey guys, this is Mike the Birdman here. We're here to talk about a couple of things we got from our friends over at Razer, and I've got a couple of these things I'll be talking about over the next little while, and they both come from their Minecraft collection. Now, this is a phenomenon that kind of passed me by for the most part, but my wife has used Minecraft in her classrooms way back in the day to teach something or other. Ultimately, I don't speak a lot of generation whatever this is, So don't ask me about your skibbities or your rizzes or your whatevers. But I do understand Minecraft somewhat. In fact, the main reason I'm doing this is as I'm kind of excited for the Minecraft movie. Mostly because I want that ridiculous Jack Black action figure, Razer, if you're listening. But anyway, so they sent us a couple things. They sent us their entire range of their Minecraft collection. We're going to talk about 2 items right now in this review. And I'm going to be talking about their Razer BlackWidow V4X Minecraft Edition keyboard. This is my first mechanical keyboard. It's got 6 macro keys and these clicky like switches, which is really interesting to me. I'm used to a keyboard that clicks, but not like this. This is something kind of nice. It's a smaller keyboard than what I'm typically used to. I actually do have another Razer keyboard, but I can't remember precisely what the model to that one was, but it is an RGB lighting keyboard, and if you've seen any of my pictures over social media over the last few days, I'm definitely digging the Weyland-Yutani green, or as I call it, the Borg green. Definitely works because I'm a writer on Star Trek. But I'm really liking how responsive this keyboard is. Yes, it's smaller profile with the macro keys on the left-hand side of the keyboard. Does force me to kind of think about where I'm typing, at least until I've kind of got the muscle memory down for it. But I really like it. It feels really fast, really smooth, really responsive. As far as I can tell, like mechanical keyboards, you could basically throw Unicron at them and they're going to last for like friggin' ever. I like it like a lot. Plus, it does have the integration with Razer software. So if you want to program your keyboard to do all kinds of lighting effects, you can do that. Now, there are options to do sort of the default options where you can just have it do a wave, a breathing, a reactive, static. Like I typically keep it to the Minecraft green personally, but I know on the box they talk about different options and stuff like that. I have seen people have the like underglow of fire, because I know in Minecraft when you dig like far enough down you get to like the fire areas and whatnot. So that's kind of cool. One of the other things to mention with this Minecraft collection too, other than being skinned like a Minecraft item in the game, is you do get in-game Minecraft items. And my friend Cassie was the receiver of these as she plays Minecraft. And with the keyboard, you get the Ender Dragon Shawl in-game item. So, hey, kind of cool. But the keyboard itself, like I said, it has this Minecraft skin on it, where it looks like it's literally made out of Minecraft blocks. I kind of dig that. I'm actually very, very pleased with how cool that actually is. So I really like that. I mean, overall, like I said, the keyboard's nice. Takes a little getting used to if you're not used to the smaller form keyboards. But the other thing that I'm going to be talking about today is yet another skinned item from them. And this is a wired headset. So this is the Razer Kraken V4X Minecraft Edition, which has like creeper graphics on either side of the headset. So on the like Mickey Mouse ears for this, and it's wired. It does glow, not as vibrant as some of the other things where like you can like program it and whatnot, but I did use it with my iPad and my iPhone. It does have a C connection to it, and you also get the Dragon Shawl as well with this particular headset. Because it's wired, you don't have to worry about battery life, which is kind of nice. Found the storage for the microphone. I actually had to look for it for like a second or two, and that was like, oh, there it is. And again, pleasantly surprised by how responsive it is. Again, wonderful headset. I think it looks kind of cool. I get a few less looks than my Razer Kitty headset when I was wearing that in public last summer. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, I like it. Again, if you're a fan of any of these Razer products, you can go get them at your major kind of retailers. But like I said, the best place to look for these things is on Razer's website, so Razer.com. So once again, do I recommend the Razer BlackWidow V4X Minecraft Edition keyboard? Yeah, again, I like it. It's a little bit different, does take a little bit getting used to, but once you're used to it, smooth as butter. As for the headset, the Razer Kraken V4X Minecraft Edition, again, it sounds really good. And for music and podcast listening, pretty kick-ass. For gaming, works just as well. Definitely recommended for those long gaming sessions. I'm going to have a few more Minecraft items probably in the next show. But anyway, stay tuned for that, and big thanks to our friends at Razer for sending these over to us. Now, back to the show.
We got a problem.
I want my money. You get paid what I say. You do what I say.
You don't know from one day to the next whether you're going to be killed, go home, or get busted.
I am the last guy you want to mess with. James Caan. Thief. Rated R.
We are steadily into the new year here. We're just past, I think, approaching or just past Q1, and our friends at the Criterion Collection have sent their latest release, which is the Michael Mann movie Thief in 4K UHD plus Blu-ray for us to review. Now, Thief I have a history with. I remember renting this. Did I rent? No, I purchased this from a used bookstore on VHS for, I think, $1.97 back when I was in high school, 25-ish some odd years ago. And it ended up becoming sort of an instant classic for me. I had heard of Michael Mann. I don't know what other movies I'd seen from him. I think I'd seen Heat already, and I knew about Miami Vice, but I didn't know about it. I was in my phase of, I've got to absorb every American crime movie, every American gangster movie I possibly can. And, I sort of stumbled across it. I was like, oh, Dennis Farina's in this. And I loved him in Crime Story, which is a great underrated TV show from Michael Mann. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I don't know if it's on streaming anywhere. Had the DVDs. They're way out of print years ago. Very good show. Set in the 1950s. Very, very good. Worth watching. I would say check it out. Anyway, back to this at hand. This is a James Caan movie where it is about a expert thief who is good at safe cracking, and he ends up he's involved with the mob and various gangsters and so on and so forth. And he is trying to do final scores, get out of it, and things go sideways, haywire. He really can't leave, and people are murdered and bad things happen. He's going to take his revenge out, and I won't spoil it even though it's an older movie. It is very worth watching. It's one of the best American crime films pretty much, well, ever. It's in 1981 is when it came out. It feels like it's a little more like late 70s because it feels like something that came out of that era, but it has that twinges of what was to become with the 80s, the visual style, the flair that we started seeing with the video editing. So the actual cuts and the actual acting, a lot of the longer shots are very much 1970s feeling, like what you saw when the end of the studio system happened and you started getting a lot of independent filmmakers making their own movies. It still had that 1960s mentality, but filmed in the 70s sort of look, but it's 1981. So what does that mean? That means that there are some kinetic cuts. There's a little more focus on the violence involved and slow motion. They're doing a little more special effects when it comes to camera work and camera angles and just makeup and gore, that sort of stuff. It's a little bit more involved there. Also, Michael Mann was always big on cueing things to music, making sure that the movie plays well with the audio. And for this film, it's one of the first features to use a mostly digital / symphonic soundtrack. I believe it was Tangerine Dream that did the music for this. They're pioneers in electronica and fully digital electronic music. Sometimes they use a little bit of analog synth, but this is a mostly ambient soundtrack made by them. They're super influential. Check them out on Spotify or whatever music app that you listen to. They are you wouldn't have a lot of stuff from Nine Inch Nails and a lot of the industrial stuff that popped up in the late 80s, early 90s without Tangerine Dream. So they're here. It's fantastic. I always loved that music for it. If you've seen the movie Drive, the movie with I'm trying to think if it was who the director was, but it's got Oscar Isaac, it's got Ryan Gosling. That was sort of a throwback mixture of Thief and The Driver, a 1970s movie that if you haven't seen that, it's also a fantastic movie, but very much the same feel, the same aesthetics, the whole atmosphere is very similar to that. So this is one of the better James Caan movies where he was at the peak of his game. It was after Godfather, before he sort of got relegated to doing a lot of TV and direct-to-video stuff later on in his career. What you have here is a 5.0 surround track, which is a little bit odd that you wouldn't have the 0.1 for the subwoofer, but it is a brand new 4K digital restoration from the director's cut, supervised and approved by Michael Mann with the 5.0 TTS Master audio soundtrack. That's probably based on the original optical tracks. Surprised there is no 0.1, but it's how Michael Mann wanted it. So there's that. Now, there's one 4K UHD disc for the film, which is Dolby Vision HDR, and one Blu-ray disc, which has the other special features. So all the special features are on the second disc here. The audio commentary featuring Michael Mann and James Caan is on there. There's interviews with Mann, Caan, Johannes Schmoling, who is of the band Tangerine Dream, which contributed to the soundtrack, as I mentioned. There's the trailer, English subtitles for the deaf and hearing impaired, and there's an essay by critic Nick James included here. It is in 1.5 aspect to 1 aspect ratio, so nothing is matted or cropped. And it is pristine. This is something that on VHS when I saw it, and DVD, and even on the Blu-ray, had been kind of hard to capture because it had a lot of film grain and that it could look a little muddied or pixelated. Not on the 4K release. They've done a pretty good job. There's no DNR, but it feels like a living, breathing film. Very well put together. Great release. Highly recommend to anybody out there who loves crime films, who loves mob movies. It's not mob movies, it's mob related, but organized crime. It is from that transition period where an 80s movie could feel like an 80s movie, but also still feel like a 70s movie. That weird position between, things released between 1979 and like 1983 could sort of feel that way. And this was sort of a pioneer of the way we presented crime movies in the future for the next few decades.
8.4 times per second.
Yeah, they're using harmonic resonance to match the archive shield frequency.
I love when you two do that.
If we set the beam to a different frequency...
That's it. Do it again.
The tunnel would automatically close.
Hey guys, this is Mike the Birdman here. I'm here to talk about something really interesting we got for review from our friends over at Modifius. I'm going to be talking about the Star Trek Adventures technical manual for the role-playing game. So first and foremost, I did not work on this particular book. I didn't even know this was in development. So imagine my surprise when a review copy of this showed up. So cool. Now that I have that disclaimer out of the way, let's get into the review. So again, I love tech manuals. For Star Wars West End games, it was stuff like Kraken's Field Manual. It was stuff like Gundark's Fantastic Guide to Technology, like Tramp Freighter, stuff like that. Anything that gave you options to do stuff. For Shadowrun, it was stuff like Shadow Tech, Street Samurai Catalog, Cyber Technology, to a lesser extent, the Grimoires. Anything that would expand magic and technology, anything that gave you cool stuff to do and expanded what your characters had access to. I'm like, you know what? I'm in. I love gear books. So when Star Trek did their own sort of gear book, I'm like, all right, cool. What do you got for me? So it kind of expands on things from like holograms and replicators and warp technology. Like there's actually a huge section on how a lot of faster than warp tech works. So stuff like the quantum slipstream drive that we saw in Star Trek Voyager. Want to know how Borg transwarp technology works? Well, they give you an explanation on that. How does a transwarp coil work? Why can't you just fix it if it burns out? Stuff like that. How does, the Borg transwarp hub work? Again, even stuff like the Spore drive. Want to drive your own version of the Protostar from Star Trek Prodigy? Well, we can make that happen. Want to know how to make your own version of the EMH? Well, we got stuff for that too. But the thing that really impressed me, as some of you know, and I'm not sure how many of you do, but I don't think it's exactly a big secret, I'm a wheelchair user. I'm a power wheelchair user, have been since 2017. So imagine my surprise when there is a section of the book on page 78 under medical enhancements. They talk about wheelchairs. I did not know in Star Trek that they still have manual wheelchairs. And it does kind of make sense. If you have to transport a patient during an emergency, you just do it. Now, yes, there is the support chair that we saw Captain Pike in, but try getting that down a hallway when, like, the Vidians or the Klingons are kicking down your bloody bulkheads. Sometimes it's just easier just to wheel somebody out. But they also talk about different types of support chairs. If you want the hover chair like Professor Xavier, it's here. That's really cool. Another thing, I also looked under medical tech, because I've got multiple family members in the medical field. I didn't know if there's a problem with a birth, like let's say a person who's pregnant is having problems with their pregnancy and they can't safely deliver the baby, they can use a medical transporter and get the baby out safely. That is so beyond cool. I never would have thought about that. But they talk about biofilters, removing foreign objects, but also the limits of what surgeries can do. What does a cortical stimulator do? Find out. What does a neural clamp do? Find out. Again, this is incredible stuff. They also talk about the ethics of just taking people's stuff. Maybe don't do that. Again, invaluable. One of the things I really like about the Star Trek Adventure system is you can really just keep adding on to it the layers of depth that you want. If you are a huge Star Trek dork who can tell me exactly how many decks were on the Excelsior when they transitioned from the old computer system to the isolinear chips, how many ships in the fleet have the bio-neural gel packs, if you're that kind of a dork, and I'm sure some of you are, this book is absolutely invaluable. Like, I am utterly surprised how they talk about this stuff, but they also talk about, like, other things you might not think about, like genetic enhancements, con anybody, but also Dr. Bashir, stuff like that. Again, this is really, really neat. If this is something you want to integrate into your games, this is great. It's also just an interesting read, too. Even if you never play the Star Trek Adventures role-playing game, I like this. And this is something that I really wonder is exclusive to British publishers, because there's another group that does the Doctor Who books, and that's Cubicle 7. Their books, even if you never play, are such a good read. It's almost like anybody who works on any nerd property like this, you have to be incredibly well read, which I don't know what I'm doing here, but still, just the fact that they think to take the time to make these things as well thought out as they do shows such a love and dedication to the property. It makes me think we are in really good hands when it comes to companies holding major IPs like this. So, do I recommend the Star Trek Adventures technical manual? I do, and a lot of it is because I feel seen. As someone with a disability, I didn't expect this, and it's honestly really important to see that, just to think about the future. We are not erased. We are just there. I mean, look at characters like Geordi. He works with his disability, but he's not defined by it. And knowing a person like me could exist in Star Trek, that's really kind of kick-ass. So I recommend this wholeheartedly, but don't take my word for it. It's written by some wonderful people. So anyway, guys, that's going to be my review of the Star Trek Adventures, the role-playing game, technical manual.
Mr. Barclay, everyone's still trying to figure out exactly how you did it.
Well, it just occurred to me that I could set up a frequency harmonic between the deflector and the shield grid using the warp field generator as a power flow anti-attenuator, and that, of course, naturally created an amplification of the inherent energy output.
I see that.
Those magnificent bastards! Color me kooky, but something very odd is going on around here.
You're not allowed to talk anymore.
And that's going to do it for the show this week. What do we have coming up? Well, as I said, I am traveling, visiting family for the next few days. And as of this recording, this week is going to be the big Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. I don't know if they're calling it anything special, but it's the big Nintendo Direct. It's going to be probably over 45 minutes, probably closer to 60, maybe even more, on the big Nintendo Switch 2 reveal. They've already revealed the console, just like what it looks like, but we're going to finally see gameplay, features, all that sort of stuff. It's going to be probably early in the morning, so we will not be doing a like immediate show the same day. Like we're not going to try to cram that in, because there's also going to be multiple days of programming afterwards. There's going to be like a Nintendo Treehouse or other companies putting out their trailers, maybe in better quality, probably a lot better quality than whatever the stream is going to be, plus other announcements and that, from the next few days. So we're going to collect everything that happens there and do our big prototype discussion about it for next week's show. So instead of a regular podcast or review show next week, maybe Sunday or Monday, somewhere in that, we're going to release a prototype that is going to be a big Nintendo Switch 2 reveal special, our thoughts on everything released so far, plus whatever was shown at the Nintendo Direct that was this past week, that was the Nintendo Switch 1 Direct. So it's going to sort of combine them all together and start almost like a new season of the prototype as we launch off and lead into what's going to be our bigger season of coverage come Summer Game Fest time, which is generally when we do the most prototype episodes. So that's going to be in place of the main show. What else do we have scheduled? We've got this week a new Earth versus Soup, which is episode 250. We're already at the halfway point to 300. Wow. And that is on the Wicker Man, the original Wicker Man movie from 1973. We are also going to have more programming on, I'm thinking Saturday or Sunday. I just got to double check on, which time works best, but we're going to have a new episode of Random Access Memories, which is on movie soundtracks. And then beyond that, we'll have to see scheduling-wise where everything is going to fit next week. But we've got plenty in the works. I know Birdman has been working tirelessly to get shows recorded and edited. And the plan is to sort of release things once we've got, a whole bunch banked up. It's going to be every other week we release one of these episodes. And then we have stuff that goes right up into the summer that, is not super important that we have to get out immediately. It's sort of an evergreen thing where it's cool topics that we can talk about pretty much at any time. And then, when in the interim weeks in between, that's when we record stuff that is more, topical and very important to get out right away. We will also have new reviews and everything ready to go that we're working on for the following week when we get back to regular programming. We will be taking a bit of a break during the Easter time, the Easter weekend. We might have a special to put in there somewhere or one of our other pieces of programming. And that's pretty much it right now. I've been working on some bigger games and movies. I've got a lot of movies and stuff coming in that I'll have to take a look at. I know Birdman's got books and things that he's working on, so there is more coming in the next little bit. We'll just have to see how everything sort of slots in. But that's pretty much it right now. I am gonna get ready to go do some cat sitting and get this edited and uploaded, and hopefully, fingers crossed, the internet is working and we don't have any weird freak power outages or any more freezing rainstorms, and we'll just sort of have to see how everything works with Nintendo over the next few days. Excited, have a lot of anticipation, not entirely sure how it's going to all go, but we'll definitely see. So stick around, listen for us. We should have our big prototype special sometime early next week right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.